All right, I'd like to welcome everyone to our Thursday night Parsippany Green Team series. This one tonight is Climate Reality, and it's hosted by Judy Hernandez. Judy, welcome.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming. I'm Judy Hernandez. I'm co-leader of the Parsippany Green Team. And we are a group of citizens and municipal people collaborating in our town and government and business community to implement programs that improve our quality of life, the physical environment, and financial sustainability of our community. We are trying to achieve sustainable Jersey certification. Our mission is to empower these communities to build a better world for our future, using tools, training, and incentives to pursue critical sustainability initiatives. And just recently, our Mayor Soriano signed the Sustainable Jersey Gold Pledge, joining other towns in trying to combat climate crisis issues. My environmental history is from a teenager being very concerned in the 70s about global warming. I became an environmental engineer, and it's been a concern of mine forever. So I took a course over the summer called the Climate Reality Project with former President Al Gore, who's been talking about these issues for decades. This beautiful picture here shows the Earth with the thin blue line, which is our atmosphere. So we all know that this picture, this was taken in, from the Apollo 17, and this was 1972. You see the Earth, you see the Antarctic, that beautiful picture. It looks like a blue marble is what they call it. And this was an inspiration to many at the time, along with Rachel Carson and with her Silent Spring and President Nixon creating the EPA Clean Water and Safe Drinking Water and Clean Air Acts. The environmental movement was born, and that was my formative years. So we know now in 2021 that climate change is happening. It's not a question. And we have three things we must ask ourselves. Must we change? Can we change? And will we change? So first we'll talk about must we change. I'm going to go through lots of different slides and just talk very basically. I'm not a climatologist or scientist. I'm an engineer. Here again, we have the Earth with the thin blue line and the sun coming up on the horizon there. So this is a diagram of the sun shining onto the Earth. Its radiation, the light waves pass through the atmosphere, and the radiation comes down and absorbed by the Earth, and it warms it, which is all good, and it's natural. And you see around the edge, we have a little bit of a barrier there. Some energy is radiated back into space by the Earth in a form of infrared waves. Getting tongue-tied. And some of this outgoing infrared radiation is trapped by the Earth's atmosphere and warms it. But what's happening is we are putting so much into the atmosphere. 152 million tons of man-made global warming pollution is into this thin shell of our atmosphere every 24 hours, like it's an open sewer. And a lot of that is being trapped. It's making that layer thicker. And that's when they talk about greenhouse gases being trapped. What are greenhouse gases? They come from industrial processes, agriculture, transportation, landfills, coal mining, and the more our Earth warms, things happen like the thawing of the permafrost, the melting of glaciers, which then adds to it. So it's just like a catch-22. It just keeps getting warmer and more gases keep being trapped. The largest source of our global warming, as we just showed, is the burning of the fossil fuels. As you can see, this from 1850 to 2019, there's an incredible increase, but particularly around the end of World War II is when that became ever so apparent. And people have been talking about this since like the late 1800s. Make no mistake, people realized this was happening. And here again, you can see the global surface temperature and the departures from the average from 1880 through now, and the warming that occurs in the last 40 years, 50 years is incredible. In fact, I heard somebody saying a few years back, if you're in your 40s or 50s, or if you're younger than me, if you're in your 40s, you've never lived in the time in the Northeast with normal temperatures, because nature is no longer in control. It's man-made climate change that's taking over. There's a 72% chance that this year will be hotter. So this is a little outdated, it's 2021, but my kids always say every year is the hottest year. And I said, because every year since you've been born has been the hottest year on record. 19 of the 20 hottest years on record have occurred since 2001. And I'm sure the last two are the same. The land masses all over the world are having the same issues. It's not just here. It's everywhere, and it's really noted some on the poles. And then you see Australia here in their summer with this key showing the very, very extreme heat waves and other heat waves. I'm just showing these for examples because it's everywhere. It's daunting. 2019 was Europe's hottest year on record. Breaking all-time highs. These are hot temperatures for Europe. See, 113 degrees, and these are in Fahrenheit. And in Siberia, Russia, in 2020, last summer, they had a temperature had reached 100 degrees. The northernmost 100 degrees temperature ever recorded, and the highest temperature on record in the Arctic. And not only is it the air around us, but it's the ocean temperatures. So as the gases warm the earth, it affects the ocean temperatures. And you can see it similar to what we saw in the air. It's happening in the ocean, 1940 through today. When you get warmer oceans, it affects the precipitation. It's going to set a new record again, and warmer air holds more moisture. So we have evaporation, then we have precipitation, which is the water returns to the sea. It's warmer, the air is warmer, we have it holding more water, and that leads to more intense storms. And it doesn't mean it's wet all the time, but more intense storms when it is wet. And we know that from what we see in our own area, but look at this air in Bangladesh here. I mean, it's just a slide. It's talking about a super cyclone that happened in May 2020, but millions of people were evacuated from their home, millions, which is incredible. Like, those are numbers that we can't fathom here. And when you think about these places, these people are less fortunate than we are and don't have the wherewithal to withstand these kinds of storms. So the gravest effects of all attacks on the environment are suffered by the poorest. And that's what Pope Francis had said a few years back, and it's true. And also in the United States, the Poor People's Campaign talks about the lists of ecological devastation as one of the primary evils, because it happens on the coast, it's happening in poor areas, it's happening where flooding is just ruining people's livelihoods. These are the precipitation anomalies. So these are the kinds of storms, the number of record-breaking events from 1950 to 2016. And, they've increased more quickly from the 80s through 2016. Not all of these are with major storms. So here's Westville, New Jersey on a day in June 2019, because it doesn't have to be a Sandy or Hurricane Irene. It should be one of those rain bombs, they call them. And look at the flooding. Look at this, it's got to this man's waist. If there are major flooding can be from rivers that are overflowing, urban floodings that are because of impervious concrete, asphalt. The rain comes down so fast, there's nowhere to go. There are, flash floods and river flooding and coastal flooding where the sea is rising because of the melting, and that's what is affecting the shorelines. So US counties, what strikes me about this is the US counties, so many of them are like in Texas here, but the point that they're saying that these counties are most vulnerable to disaster, because it's not like we're not vulnerable here in New Jersey, but they are because they're 80% of these are 81% minority. Back in 2019, 20 million acres could not be planted because of heavy rainfall and flooding. So there's so many other impacts other than just them not planting. It's global floods and extreme rainfalls events now occur 4 times more than they did in 1980. I know this sounds like doom and gloom, like the, you know, biblical times here, but bear with me. It gets a little bit, it gets better if it can get better. In June, the groundwater levels in Europe were so amazingly low. So people are like, well, it's raining so much and there's so much rain, but it's the rain storms that are so intense. Then it's the drought. And we see that in New Jersey. And then you have hot years with more fires. We see that a lot on the West Coast. As the seasons have become longer, there's less snow melt. When the seasons are longer and there's more drought and the things are dry and there's more intense winds, more lightning storms, there's more fires, and these fires are hot. So it's just, you know, it snowballs from one to another. And of course, the stuff that's going on in like Brazil and the Amazon are fires that are man-made because they're cutting down their forests, and they've been doing that for decades. You see the orangey dots here are all fires in South America, down from Argentina through to Peru and Brazil. And the cities are the light dots. This really unfortunate thing about this happening, I mean, they're cutting down forests, that's terribly unfortunate, is that our trees are one of our weapons against climate change gases. They help absorb those greenhouse gases. It's another exciting slide showing worldwide extreme weather catastrophes. You see these matchstick looking figures here from 1980 through 2019, with the red on top being the extreme droughts and fires. And, you know, proportions are all kind of similar, but they all do increase over time. And this is from 1980 to 2019. This is the stuff that breaks my heart, because I always thought when I was a young person that I wouldn't be around to see a lot of the glaciers melting. But then they started to happen in the last 20 years. This is an unnamed glacier in Southwest Greenland, summer 1935. And then 2013, look how much of that retreated. You know, as we have a drink full of ice and then it starts melting, it goes quickly the more the liquid around it is warmer. So it's escalating. This is the Antarctic loss just in the last 10 years, from 2009 to 2017, is so significant. These are ice loss per year in billions metric tons. Another interesting thing to keep in mind, and these are global snapshots, but what we're doing here in Parsippany, we're talking about what we can do here in our own town, in our own part of the world, and hopefully that will catch fire everywhere. The top 10 cities at risk from sea level rise by population by 2070, I won't be here, but by 2070 is this list here. So you see all these places that are not here, but Miami is, and it's down towards the end here per population. When you look at the top 10 cities at risk by assets, Miami is up there. You get New York in here, Newark, and of course, all these other places. So it's everywhere. In fact, New Jersey is at risk. It's like the ground zero on this side, on this coast here. So climate change will likely lead to more food and water shortages, pandemic diseases, oh boy, and disputes over refugees, resources, and destruction by natural disasters. This is a national security issue for us and for everyone. And all the effects from climate change do intersect in our lives, whether it's healthcare and the economy, illnesses that are insidious that we don't even realize why people are getting some diseases. A lot of it's from the air pollution. It's a medical emergency, we know that. Tropical diseases on the move. We don't know, so I don't know some of these diseases, but we do know West Nile here, and we do know Zika. And let's go back one. I'm going to put it back on and just see how they start spreading, and they're moving all around the world quickly too. These are things that are going to happen more and more. And of course, we talk about this a lot when we talk about the RGEA. That's attributable to ambient air pollution. I mean, these numbers are staggering. In my notes here, they talk about air pollution killing 9 million people from fossil fuels. Just look at this medium orange here in the United States, that's per year, but you look around the world, a lot of people also are making their, they heat their homes with biomass. That's dangerous to them too. But, you know, you hear people have diabetes, COPD, they have strokes. You don't know what, a lot of this is because of our environment. And of course, when I did this conference, it was during COVID, so we did it virtually, but it became apparent right away, the discrepancies with people, the haves and the have-nots, who lives where, what kind of communities are suffering more. And even though this data is from last summer, we know that people of color suffered more from COVID. Why is that? It's because some of the areas that they're living in, they have underlying conditions because of pollution and that, you know, the ambient air that they live in. And the critters all around the world, this has been going on too for a while. We are in a mass extinction of our own doing. It's not the meteors taking away the dinosaurs or, you know, the ice age, but we are creating our own extinction, and 50% of the land-based species will be lost in this century. So all the things that I've been talking about are the cost of fossil fuels. This instability, the floods, the mudslides, drought, storm damage, ocean acidification, which of course affects the temperatures, but it affects our marine life, and infrastructure loss, climate refugees. So do we see all these right now here? No, but we see a lot of it. We see a lot of it here in New Jersey. We see the infrastructure loss, storm damage. We see drought, we see floods. If it just got worse, what it could put anything over the edge. Water scarcity is an issue in Morris County. Some of these things are happening other places, but they affect us. The melting glaciers, species extinction will affect us. Bats are gone for whatever, for their white nose disease, but what happens? They don't eat the insects. We have more mosquitoes. We have crazy mosquitoes with Zika virus. Everything is contingent on something else. The whole web of our ecosystem is connected, but mostly it's our global economy that we really notice in our insurances and everything. So must we change? Yes, we must change. Okay, that's the good news, is that we know we must change, and companies realize we must change. Is it a little late? Better late than never. So can we change? We have solutions at hand, and some of these will make you feel really positive. So in 2000, the worldwide wind capacity was projected to reach 30 gigawatts by 2010. But in reality, by 2019, it exceeded that by a factor of 22 times. And I think this is really incredible. 1980, the wind capacity in megawatts was like, it's down here, and it's all the way up to like 650,000. Better news, 2002 projection, the solar energy market will grow 1 gigawatt per year by 2010, they said. And the reality was that it was 17 times. By 2019, it was 121 times. Why is that happening? Why couldn't we be on this road before? The world solar photovoltaic installations have increased from 1980 through 2019. And our, you know, Matt Kavanaugh, our one of our co-leaders, can speak to this later too, have increased incredibly. I couldn't include some of the pictures I wanted to in here because we were recording, but I have some pictures that maybe I can show without us recording of grass huts, like in deserts and in Africa and stuff. And they have solar panels on the grass hut thatched roofs, which are pretty incredible. The cost of these solar cell modules in 1976, when Carter was putting them on the White House, the solar panels and stuff, was $79.40 per watt. In 2020, it was down to 20 cents. And this here at the end of 2013, and then now, is the Chilean market going solar in a big way. Just shows you what we can do and what some countries are doing, because they see that there's really no other choice, and that's important. There's enough solar energy to reach the Earth every hour to fill all the world's energy needs for a full year. Fabulous. But we have to store that. So the other part of this good news is that the storage capacity is getting better. I don't know a lot about batteries and stuff like that, but this one I thought was pretty interesting, that the cost over the last 10 years has decreased by 85%. The lithium ion batteries. Energy storage deployments doubled from 2017 to 2018 and were projected to double again in 2019, but look at what's happening here. It's going up astronomically. Auto manufacturers are moving to electrical vehicles, and global electric cars on the road have increased incredibly, including hybrids. So we start here 2010 all the way down to like almost 7 million on the road. So can we change? Yes. Will we change? That's really up to us. So this was last summer, and we know we were in the Paris Agreement, and we really wouldn't have been pulled out of it until after the election. And fortunately, we're back in it. But it's not just the Paris Agreement, because we came out of that Kyoto too early on, a decade or more ago. And what we need to do, and what other places have done, is started to act locally. Business have seen the writing on the wall. They've started to create their own sustainability and resiliences within their companies. Conventional energy stocks are not really worth the investment, as you can see. So we're not running out and building lots of new coal plants, okay? And the energy has been the worst performer since the US, but bull stock market began more than a decade ago. So going back again to the whole thing about the Paris Agreement, all the nations have decided that we must act. It's not going to be easy, but we're trying, and these states have been doing this they called it Cool Cities 10 years ago, and Mayor's Action. And like I said, our mayor signed the gold pledge to reduce our carbon footprint. Businesses are doing it, and that will lead the way. These 24 states represent 55% of the American people to follow the United States Climate Alliance. So they were doing this even between 2016 and 2020, when we were saying we weren't going to contribute with the Paris Climate Agreement. Over 240 global companies have made a commitment to go 100% renewable. And so there's a lot of ones in here that you would recognize: Mars, Cliff Bars, Etsy, Dell. Everybody's trying to talk the talk, so let's be hopeful. Join those who are using their voices, their votes, and their choices to fight for their future, their community, and their world. Use your voice, your vote, your choices, and speak truth to power like your world depends on it, because, guys, it does. And that is climate reality, like in 70 slides, real fast. But it is so important, and I am so heartened by some of the statistics that we had seen that I've learned on here about the renewable energy market that I really didn't know before. I mean, I did know because Matthew Kavanaugh kind of, instructed me on those, but it's heartening, because before that, 10 years ago, I was like, oh, what can we actually do to try to help make this world a little bit of a better place? But we can. And that's my climate reality presentation.
That was a great presentation. Great slides.
I agree. Matthew and Ken, do you have any questions that you would like to ask Judy?
I do. So Climate Reality Corps, you actually went to a training, right? And this is, you submit an application and then you become a climate reality leader. Is that right?
Yes.
What's the process there?
You have to apply and then they get back to you. You have to apply, you apply, they accept you, and then you have to go to the event. So the conference is several days and you have activities and assignments that you have to do, and you watch and you listen and you meet people from all over the world that are doing this kind of thing. So it's really, it encourages people to go out and do something like what I'm doing. Even though I'm not like a climatologist, it's giving you the information and the tools. And there's so much, we see that people are paying attention. I mean, the fact that we're talking about climate change in the political world is huge. That didn't happen before now.
2020 was the hottest year on record. So
yeah,
you could put that into the slide.
Yeah, I mean, you get numb to it after a while, but when you and I could talk about it, you look at your life and you're like, I know it wasn't always like this, because some people will say, oh, but we have hot years, we have cold years. No, it was not always like this.
When you show those charts, there's always people who say, well, we've been measuring records for 200, 250 years, but the Earth is 4.3 billion years old. And there have been periods when it's been hotter, and there have been periods when it's been much colder, and that's all cyclic. And the answer to that is, a lot of those changes did take place, but they took place over millions and millions of years. We're seeing, the kind of change that we're seeing now took, a couple of million years, and we're doing it in 20.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the big difference.
Yep.
The other thing, if you really want to make it even more scary, is to talk about all the positive feedback loops that are driving change even faster, than it looks like. In Alaska and in Siberia, when the ground is melting, and it's releasing
permafrost.
The permafrost is melting, releasing carbon dioxide and methane, and that makes it hotter. That makes it melt faster, and you've got all these. Same thing with burning in the in the Amazon. Same thing with the loss of ice in the north, and less heat reflecting off of the ice, more being absorbed by the ocean. Those are incredibly scary.
I think sometimes too, when you're talking about something this big, sometimes people need to have clear-cut ways that they can help the environment.
That's
not
right.
necessarily adding solar, but something, for instance, when you buy your groceries, when you buy your vegetables, don't buy them in that styrofoam thing all wrapped with saran wrap. That just is garbage. It's going in the garbage. It's going in the landfill. It's an issue. And so that's a clear-cut thing that someone could do. It's easy. Sometimes people need even that simple a guidance to grasp or to understand that it's okay to have a little vegetable bag instead of using those plastic bags.
The little things, and that's what Sustainable Jersey offers us in our municipality, in Parsippany. That certification gives the citizen, the power to say, you know what, I'm going to be part of this group that's working to do A, B, C. Maybe I can't do it by myself, but I can do it with somebody else. Oh yeah, I can opt to have, be in this program for my, the renewable energy aggregation for JCP&L, right? Because I understand that's going to help.
Right.
So if we can get people to feel that they have some agency in how things work, and how they can help, bring a reusable bag to the store. Try not to keep your house super, super cold in the summer with your air conditioning, because try not to blow every leaf off your lawn with a leaf blower. So there's a lot of things. We can do something here in Parsippany with our renewable energy and supporting all these actions that the green team is trying to take. And if they're interested, or if you're interested, or you know somebody that's interested, spread the word and come. Everybody has a talent that they can
yeah.
Offer.